Nothing truly important in your life has ever been random. The encounters you dismissed as accidents may be the very forces shaping your destiny. Miss this, and you miss the map your unconscious has been drawing for you all along. Most people live believing their lives are driven by conscious choices, decisions, plans, logic, effort. That belief feels safe. It gives the illusion of control. But it also hides a disturbing truth. Some of the most decisive moments of your life were never planned by you at all. They arrived unexpectedly, disguised as coincidences, interruptions, or wrong timing. And yet, they changed everything. Here's the uncomfortable idea most people never consider. What if your unconscious has been guiding you more accurately than your conscious mind ever could? What if those random meetings, strange delays, emotional reactions, and sudden fascinations weren't accidents, but signals? Signals pointing you toward a path you couldn't have designed with logic alone. A path that only reveals itself when you're ready to see it. This video isn't about motivation or positive thinking. It's about recognizing the hidden intelligence already shaping your life and learning how to read it before it has to scream. Once you see how these accidental encounters work, you'll stop fighting confusion, stop forcing answers, and start understanding why your life keeps nudging you in very specific directions. And the moment that clicks, you don't just gain clarity, you gain trust in yourself again. You know that moment when your day is mapped out, your mind feels in control, and then, boom, something interrupts you? A delayed train, a missed call, a stranger who says one sentence that sticks with you all day. You tend to label these moments as bad timing or dumb luck. But here's the quiet truth. Interruptions aren't accidents, they're signals. Life rarely shouts, it nudges. And those nudges often come disguised as inconvenience, right when you're too focused on your plan to notice a deeper direction unfolding beneath it. Think of your conscious mind like a GPS that only knows the fastest route. Your unconscious, though, is more like an old guide who knows the terrain, the storms, the shortcuts, and the cliffs. When your plans get interrupted, it's not sabotage, it's correction. You wanted speed. Your inner life wants meaning. That's why these moments feel emotionally charged, slightly uncomfortable, or oddly memorable. They carry unconscious guidance, pulling your attention towards something your rational mind would have ignored. Let's make this practical. Say you miss a meeting and end up sitting in a cafe you never planned to visit. You overhear a conversation, notice a book on the table next to you, or strike up small talk with someone who mentions an idea you've been wrestling with internally. That's not magic, it's alignment. Start doing this. When plans break, don't rush to fix the moment. Pause. Ask yourself, what am I being exposed to right now that I wouldn't have seen otherwise? That simple question sharpens awareness and turns disruption into insight. Here's a metaphor that helps. Imagine you're reading a book, but you're skimming too fast. Suddenly, someone folds the page. Annoying, right? But when you unfold it, your eyes land on the exact sentence you needed to read slowly. Interruptions work the same way. They force you to reread life at a different pace, and often that's where meaning lives, not in the rush, but in the pause you didn't ask for. So next time something random throws you off, don't immediately label it as failure or bad luck. Treat it like a whisper from beneath the surface, a subtle reroute, meaning rarely arrives on schedule. And as you start noticing how often these disruptions point you toward deeper self-discovery, you'll sense there's something even more deliberate hiding behind repetition itself. Because when life keeps interrupting you in similar ways, it's no longer asking, it's insisting. You might believe your life is guided mostly by conscious decisions, what you choose, what you plan, what you chase. But here's the twist. Your unconscious mind is already 10 steps ahead, quietly steering the wheel while you think you're driving. It doesn't argue with you or try to convince you. It simply arranges encounters, emotions, and impulses that pull you in certain directions. When something hits you emotionally without warning, that's not a mistake. That's precision. The unconscious never wastes energy. It aims straight at what matters. Think of it like an archer shooting in the dark. You don't see the target, but the arrow lands exactly where it needs to. That's how unconscious guidance works. You randomly feel drawn to a topic, a person, a city, or even a video at the exact moment you're ready for it. Later, you look back and realize that moment shifted everything. At the time, it felt casual. In reality, it was necessary. Meaning often hides behind familiarity so your ego doesn't resist it. Here's something you can actually do with this. Start tracking what repeatedly captures your attention. Not what you think you should care about, but what you can't stop noticing. Write it down. Songs that hit too close, ideas that linger, names, themes, or symbols that keep showing up. This isn't superstition, it's pattern recognition. The unconscious speaks in repetition because it knows that's the only way to break through conscious noise. A good analogy is a magnet under a table. From above, metal objects seem to accidentally roll in a certain direction, but underneath, there's a force shaping every movement. Your unconscious works the same way. You don't feel pushed, you feel drawn. And that pull becomes stronger the more aligned it is with your authentic path. Resistance, on the other hand, often shows up as anxiety, boredom, or that heavy sense of this isn't it. Once you accept that your unconscious aim is intentional, you stop panicking over uncertainty. You begin to trust subtle attraction over loud ambition. And as you notice how precise these inner pulls really are, a deeper question starts forming beneath the surface. Why do some moments feel charged with meaning while others fade instantly? You've been taught to trust logic, cause and effect, straight lines and clear explanations. If something can't be measured, it must be dismissed. But life doesn't move only in straight lines. It moves in patterns, and sometimes meaning shows up without a visible cause. That's when you feel it in your chest before you can explain it with words. A coincidence isn't powerful because it's rare. It's powerful because it resonates. It lands inside you, like a bell being struck, and you feel the echo long after the moment passes. Think about it. Hundreds of things happen to you every week, yet only a few feel charged. A sentence overheard at the exact right moment. A number, a name, or an idea that keeps reappearing. These aren't just events, they're messages wrapped in timing. Meaning doesn't shout for attention, it aligns. When your inner state and outer world briefly match, that alignment creates a shock of recognition. You don't think, this is important, you feel it. And feeling is the unconscious saying, look closer. Here's how you work with this instead of brushing it off. When a coincidence hits you emotionally, don't rush to explain it away. Sit with it. Ask, what part of my life does this connect to right now? For example, if you're questioning a career move and you repeatedly encounter stories, people, or content about reinvention, that's not random noise, that's meaning knocking gently. Keep a small note on your phone where you write down these moments. Over time, patterns emerge, and patterns are the unconscious made visible. A useful metaphor is tuning a radio. Most of the time, all you hear is static. But when you hit the right frequency, the sound becomes clear instantly. Coincidences are those moments of clear signal. They don't last long, but while they're there, everything suddenly makes sense. Miss them, and life returns to noise. Catch them, and you begin to realize that meaning isn't created. It's perceived. As you grow more sensitive to these signals, you'll notice something unsettling and fascinating at the same time. Certain coincidences don't comfort you, they challenge you. They point toward people, ideas, or situations that stir discomfort. That tension isn't a warning to retreat. It's a sign that meaning is pushing you towards something unfinished. Every so often, you meet someone who gets under your skin for no clear reason. They annoy you, intimidate you, fascinate you, or trigger something raw inside. You barely know them, yet they occupy your thoughts longer than they should. That reaction isn't about them, it's about you. Certain encounters act like emotional mirrors, reflecting parts of yourself you've tucked away, ignored, or judged. And the unconscious uses other people because it knows that's where your defenses drop fastest. Think of your personality like a house with locked rooms. You show guests the living room, maybe the kitchen. But there are rooms you avoid, the messy ones, the dark ones, the unfinished ones. A stranger who mirrors your shadow walks straight into those rooms without asking permission. Their confidence might irritate you because you suppressed your own. Their arrogance might enrage you because it reminds you of impulses you learned to hide. The emotional charge is the clue. Neutral people don't trigger growth. Here's how you turn this into awareness instead of conflict. The next time someone strongly affects you, pause before judging. Ask yourself, what quality in them am I reacting to? Then ask, where does this exist in me, expressed or suppressed? For example, if someone's boldness feels threatening, experiment with small acts of assertiveness in your own life. Speak up once in a meeting. Set one clear boundary. You don't need to become them, you need to reclaim what you disowned. A powerful analogy is seeing your reflection in a distorted mirror at a carnival. It looks exaggerated, uncomfortable, even ridiculous. But it's still you. Shadow encounters work the same way. They exaggerate traits so you can't ignore them anymore. The goal isn't to like the reflection, it's to recognize it. Once you do, the emotional grip loosens and the lesson integrates quietly. As you grow more aware of these mirrors, you'll notice a pattern. The people who disturb you most often appear when you're standing at the edge of change. They don't arrive to hurt you, they arrive to reveal what's missing. And once you start reclaiming those hidden pieces, life stops sending the same mirrors and begins rerouting you in unexpected ways. You probably think of detours as delays, annoying interruptions that push you away from where you should be. But most detours aren't obstacles, they're disclosures. They reveal roads you've been avoiding because they didn't match your identity, your expectations, or your comfort zone. When life blocks the straight path, it's often because that path no longer leads to growth. The unconscious doesn't argue, it redirects. And redirection feels frustrating only when you're attached to an outdated destination. Picture your life like a river. When water hits a rock, it doesn't stop. It curves. Over time, those curves carve canyons. Detours shape depth. If everything went exactly as planned, your life would be efficient, yes, but shallow. That job that didn't work out, that relationship that dissolved, that opportunity that slipped through your fingers, each one may have felt like loss. Yet, in hindsight, many of them saved you from becoming someone smaller than you were meant to be. Here's how you apply this without drifting into blind faith. When a plan collapses, write down what it was giving you: status, security, validation, money, familiarity. Then ask, what deeper need was I trying to satisfy? Freedom, expression, belonging, growth. Once you name the real need, you can seek healthier, more aligned ways to meet it. For example, if a career detour removes status but awakens creativity, explore it intentionally. Take a course, read biographies of people who reinvented themselves, or start a side project with low pressure but high meaning. A helpful metaphor is hiking with an outdated map. You insist on following it, but the terrain has changed. The detour isn't the problem, the map is. Life updates the terrain before it updates your beliefs. Detours force you to look up, reassess, and notice possibilities you would have marched right past with your eyes locked on the old route. Once you stop fighting detours, something interesting happens. Resistance turns into curiosity. You begin asking, why here? Why now? And in that curiosity, you start sensing that these redirections aren't random at all. They're leading you closer to something that keeps appearing again and again. You've probably had this happen without fully registering it. A book, a quote, a video, or even a random sentence seems to find you at just the right moment. You weren't searching for it. You didn't plan it. Yet when it appears, it feels oddly personal, like it was written with you in mind. That's not chance browsing, that's readiness. Knowledge doesn't arrive when you want it. It arrives when you're capable of receiving it without resisting. Think about how many times advice bounced off you in the past. Same words, same ideas, zero impact. Then one day the exact same message hits differently, deeper, heavier, clearer. The difference isn't the information, it's you. Your inner life shifted just enough for meaning to land. The unconscious waits for that opening, then places the right material in your path, like a seed dropped into fertile soil. Timing is everything, and timing is psychological. Here's how you can work with this instead of overlooking it. When something resonates strongly, especially something you didn't seek, slow down. Don't just consume it and move on. Reread it, sit with it, apply one small idea immediately. If a book grabs you, don't rush through it. Read one chapter and ask, how does this show up in my life right now? If it's a video or quote, write down one line and keep it visible for a week. Meaning deepens through interaction, not speed. A strong metaphor here is learning a language. You can hear foreign words for years, but they're just noise until your mind clicks into understanding. Suddenly the same sounds become meaning. That's what happens when the right idea meets the right inner state. You didn't change the words changed you. And once that happens, you can't unsee what you've seen. As you start noticing how information finds you when you're ready, you'll realize something else. Some messages don't comfort you, they challenge you, they provoke action, unsettle habits, and demand change. And that's when the question quietly shifts from, why did this find me, to what keeps showing up in my life again and again. When something repeats in your life, it's easy to get irritated or numb. Same situations, same emotions, same types of people, different faces, same feeling. You might call it bad luck or a phase, but repetition is one of the clearest ways the unconscious communicates. It doesn't repeat to punish you, it repeats to teach. When a lesson isn't integrated, life doesn't move on. It loops. And those loops are invitations to awareness, not sentences of fate. Think of it like a song stuck on replay. At first, it's background noise. After a while, it becomes impossible to ignore. That's how patterns work. You keep encountering the same themes until you stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to show me about myself? The moment you shift the question, repetition loses its grip and turns into insight. Here's a grounded way to work with this. Pick one recurring pattern: relationships, work, self-sabotage, or emotional reactions. Write down the common thread, not the external details, but the internal experience. Do you feel unseen, controlled, overwhelmed, under-challenged? Once you name the feeling, look for the belief underneath it. For example, repeating burnout might hide a belief that your worth comes from overgiving. Awareness doesn't fix everything instantly, but it breaks the illusion of randomness. A useful analogy is walking in circles while blindfolded. From inside the experience, it feels like movement. From above, it's obvious you're stuck. Patterns are perspective problems. The unconscious keeps circling you around the same terrain until you remove the blindfold, until you see. And seeing doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty. As repetition becomes clearer, you'll notice something subtle but powerful. Some patterns soften the moment you truly recognize them. Others intensify right before they dissolve, like a final test. And that intensity often leads to moments that feel almost too aligned to ignore. Every once in a while, a moment lands with such precision that it almost unsettles you. The timing is flawless. The words arrive exactly when you needed them. The opportunity appears right as you were about to give up. It feels too perfect to be coincidence, yet too quiet to be dramatic. These moments don't explode into your life, they click into place. And when they do, you feel a strange mix of calm and intensity, like something deep inside you just nodded and said, yes. What makes these moments powerful isn't their beauty, it's their clarity. There's no confusion, no mental debate. You don't overthink, you recognize. It's similar to meeting someone and instantly knowing the conversation matters, even if you can't explain why. Logic usually comes later, scrambling to catch up. The unconscious doesn't persuade with arguments, it persuades with certainty. And certainty feels different from excitement. It's quieter, heavier, more grounded. Here's how you can tell you're inside one of these moments. Your body relaxes while your attention sharpens. Time feels slightly distorted. You're fully present without trying. When that happens, don't rush. Don't immediately ask what it means. Let it register first. Later, reflect on what inner question you'd been carrying before that moment appeared. These perfect alignments tend to answer questions you weren't brave enough to ask out loud. A fitting metaphor is a lock clicking open. You didn't force it. You didn't even know the key was in your hand, but suddenly it turns effortlessly. These moments are like that. Evidence that something internal and something external just matched frequency. And once you experience that click, you start trusting alignment over urgency, depth over speed. As you become more attentive to these precise moments, you'll notice they often arrive right before a shift, before you change direction, redefine yourself, or let go of an old identity. They don't demand action immediately. They prepare you internally. You were probably taught that life is something you engineer, set goals, build plans, optimize every step, and force clarity through effort. And sure, planning has its place. But the deeper truth is this: the most meaningful paths aren't constructed like buildings, they're uncovered like fossils, slowly, patiently, layer by layer. When you try to design your entire future from the surface of your mind, you end up chasing what looks good instead of what feels true. Think about how the most important changes in your life actually happened. You didn't sit down one day with a perfect blueprint and execute it flawlessly. You followed curiosity, you responded to discomfort, you adjusted after failure, meaning emerged after movement, not before. That's because your unconscious path reveals itself through experience, not prediction. Clarity is often a reward for engagement, not a prerequisite for action. Here's a grounded way to live this. Instead of asking, "What should I do with my life?" ask, "What feels alive right now?" Then take small, low-risk steps in that direction. Read books related to what stirs you. Have conversations with people already walking that terrain. Experiment without needing immediate certainty. Think of it like walking at night with a flashlight. You don't see the whole road, only the next few steps, but that's enough to keep moving. A strong metaphor here is sailing. You don't control the wind, you adjust the sails. When you fight the wind, you exhaust yourself. When you work with it, progress feels almost effortless. Your unconscious signals are the wind: attraction, resistance, excitement, boredom. They're not distractions, they're navigation tools. As you loosen your grip on rigid plans, you'll notice something subtle but powerful. Trust begins to replace anxiety. You stop forcing answers and start allowing discovery. There's a quiet relief that comes when you realize this. You're not wandering aimlessly. Even in moments of confusion, something deeper has been guiding you the entire time. The problem isn't lack of direction, it's lack of listening. You were trained to trust noise, opinions, trends, pressure, urgency. But the self doesn't scream. It speaks in subtle signals: intuition, attraction, discomfort, curiosity. Think of the self as an internal compass, not a map. A map tells you exactly where to go. A compass only tells you what direction is true. That's why guidance from within often feels vague but persistent. You might not know how everything will work out, but you sense when something is aligned or off. That sense is intelligence, not emotional chaos. Here's a practical way to reconnect with that guidance. At the end of your day, ask yourself one simple question. When did I feel most like myself today? Not happiest, not most productive, most yourself. Then ask the opposite. When did I feel drained or fake? Patterns emerge fast when you ask honest questions consistently. A powerful metaphor is learning to hear a friend's voice in a crowded room. At first, it's all noise. But once you recognize their tone, you can pick it out instantly. The self works the same way. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. And as that inner guidance grows stronger, something shifts. You stop asking for constant reassurance. You stop outsourcing your decisions. You move with quiet confidence. Now here's where this stops being just insight and starts becoming a turning point. Everything you've heard only matters if you let it change how you pay attention. Your life has already been teaching you, through coincidences, detours, repetition, emotional reactions. But the real question is this: are you finally willing to listen? Take a moment and ask yourself, what patterns have been following you lately? What encounters keep replaying in different forms? What situations trigger you more than they should? Don't answer quickly. Sit with it. Those reactions aren't flaws, they're signals. Here's your challenge. Over the next few days, slow down just enough to notice. Notice what draws your attention without effort. Notice what drains you even when it looks right. Write these things down. Reflect on them. Act on one small insight. So let me ask you directly. What if the path you're searching for has been walking toward you this entire time? What if the next accidental moment you're about to dismiss is actually the doorway you've been waiting for?